Number 5. Dale Williams. Around noon on May 27, 1999, 42-year-old Dale Williams was at his business, Pro Body Shop, in Nucla, Colorado, playing a round of darts with a friend. During the game, someone called the shop and Williams answered the phone. His friend said by the way he talked, it sounded like he was talking to a woman. The call was to go help somebody who needed a jumpstart, and they were between the communities of Bedrock and Paradox, Colorado, which was about 35 miles away from the shop. Before leaving the shop, Williams checked into the office and told the staff that he was going out on the call. His staff thought that it was unusual that he was going out on the call because he wasn't a mechanic. Later that night, he didn't return home, but his wife just assumed that he got caught up at work and she went to bed. The next morning, she discovered that he hadn't returned home, so she called the police. The police searched for Williams, but he was nowhere to be found. Then, over the next several weeks, odd things started to happen. First, torn-up photographs of Williams and his family were found on the ground outside of his auto body shop. Also, there were 22 caliber bullets scattered on the ground. A short time later, Williams' wife, who owned a video rental store, found a 22 caliber handgun in the video drop box. His wife recognized the gun because it belonged to Williams. The police think that someone broke into the shop and stole the gun and the photographs. This led the police to speculate that the killer might be a former friend of Williams. Williams and his wife helped the former friend's wife move out of state, and they refused to give him her new address. The police interviewed the former friend, and they dismissed him as a suspect. 5 weeks after Williams disappeared, a family swimming at the confluence of the San Miguel and Dolores rivers in western Colorado made an unusual discovery. 10 feet below the water was Williams' truck. The truck was in gear, and the ignition was on, meaning that someone drove it into the water. The car was dumped about 40 miles away from the area where Williams was heading for the call. The police determined that the call was made from a stolen cell phone, but they don't know who made the call that lured him out of the shop. They also have no idea what happened to Williams. Sadly, his body has never been found. Dale Williams' family is still hoping that someone will come forward with information that will crack the case. Number 4. Celinda Jean Winiger. In early 1979, the Winiger family of Burlington, Vermont started to get harassing phone calls. The callers seemed to have a real hatred for the family's youngest daughter, 17-year-old Celinda Jean, who went by the name Cindy. The calls got so bad that the family was forced to change their phone number. On March 21, 1979, Cindy left her home to go visit a friend, but she never made it there. When her parents realized that she was missing, they contacted the police. The police thought that Cindy had run away because in the months before she disappeared, Cindy had started smoking marijuana and she had become argumentative with her parents. Her family thought it was possible that she could have run away, but shortly after she disappeared, Cindy's mother got a horrifying call from an unidentified man. He said, "You want your daughter? She's tied up at the bottom of the Winooski River," and then the man quickly hung up the phone. The family told the police about the call, but they supposedly didn't follow up on it or look in the river. Over the course of the next few years, there were several unconfirmed sightings of Cindy. For example, 2 years after she disappeared, one of Cindy's aunts said that she saw Cindy standing at the back of her father's funeral, but no one else saw her. Years later, Cindy's mother passed away without ever finding out what happened to her daughter. Cindy's siblings think that it's possible that she ran away, but they also point out that she has never made contact with any of her friends or family in nearly 40 years. Also, in all that time, no trace of Cindy has ever been found. It is as if she walked through a crack in reality and disappeared. Number 3. Kelly Burke Dove. On the night of June 18, 1982, Kelly Burke Dove was working the night shift alone at the Imperial gas station in Harrisburg, Virginia. She wasn't supposed to work that night, and she only had the shift because she traded with one of her sisters. Just after midnight, Dove called 911 and told them that she was getting strange and disturbing phone calls. She said that the calls really unsettled her, and she asked for an officer to come by and watch the store, but unfortunately, the police did not send anyone to the store. At 2:27 a.m., Dove called 911 again. She said that a man came into the store, and he was dressed inappropriately. Again, Dove asked for an officer to come to the store. Minutes later, Dove called 911 a third time. This time she sounded really scared, and she said that the man was pulling up to the store again. Dove told the 911 operator that the man was driving a silver car, possibly a Ford. The police finally arrived 2 minutes after the third call to 911, and Dove was nowhere to be found. On the counter, a magazine was open and a cigarette was still burning. There were no signs of a struggle, nothing was stolen from the store, and Dove's purse was also left behind. Unfortunately, the police pretty much botched the investigation from the start. They didn't collect fingerprints or even close down the gas station after Dove went missing. Since they did such a horrible job during the investigation, they were never able to find any evidence as to what happened to Dove, and no arrests were made in the abduction, but there were two strong suspects in the case. The first suspect is a man that Dove went to high school with that had a history of making obscene phone calls and indecent exposure. The problem is that in the 3 phone calls to 911, Dove doesn't identify the man, which she probably would have done if she had recognized who was harassing her. Another theory is that she was killed by a man named Glenn Barker. Barker sometimes drove a Ford, and in the days after Dove disappeared, he was seen painting his car. Barker also had a history of violence against women and young girls. The first known incident happened in 1981 when he kidnapped a young woman at knife point in North Carolina. Barker tied her to a bed inside his house, but luckily she escaped when he went to move his car. Barker was arrested for kidnapping, but the victim refused to testify, and Barker was given a 2-year suspended sentence. He then moved to Charlottesville, Virginia. On the night of July 12, 1982, just 3 weeks after Dove disappeared, 12-year-old Katie Worski was kidnapped during a sleepover at a friend's house in Charlottesville, which is about an hour's drive away from where Dove went missing. Barker was an early suspect in the case because he had been dating the mother of Katie's friend. He was interviewed by the police, and he said that on the night that Katie disappeared, he went over to the apartment after everyone was asleep. He said that he gave Katie and her friend some beer, and then he left the apartment when they fell asleep. The police didn't believe his story, and they asked for permission to search his apartment. Barker gave them permission, and they searched his apartment, where they found wet clothes with blood on it. Some of the blood was type B, which was Katie's blood type. They also found a pair of young girl's underwear hidden in his sock drawer. There was a spot of blood on the underwear in the same area where Catherine injected herself with insulin because she was a diabetic. Unfortunately, Katie's body has never been found. Even without a body, Barker was convicted of second-degree murder, but he only served 9.5 years in prison. He was released in 1992 at the age of 33. After he was released, he got into a relationship with a woman named Cynthia Johnson who lived in Richmond, Virginia. On August 29, 1996, the fire department was called to Cynthia's home because it was on fire. Inside the home, the police found the bodies of Cynthia and her 7-year-old daughter Heather. They both had been brutally murdered before the fire was set in 7 different places around the house. Barker had an alibi for the time of the murders, but he was caught lying about the alibi. Also, a neighbor of Cynthia Johnson saw Barker's pickup truck near the house around the time of the fire. However, there was no physical evidence implicating Barker in the double murder, and he was never charged. Barker is also considered a suspect in the murder of 18-year-old Paula Jean Chandler in Charlottesville. Chandler went missing the day after Dove was kidnapped after going to a co-worker's apartment to watch a movie. Her body was found 2 days later in the Riviana Reservoir. She had suffered 2 serious blows to the head, but she was alive when she was dumped into the water. Chandler worked at a restaurant that was about a mile away from where Barker lived, and she also lived close to Katie. Barker denied being involved in any of the murders, including the one that he was convicted of. He died in 2014 at the age of 55 in a golfing resort town in North Carolina. Number 2. Amber Tuckrow. On August 18, 2010, 20-year-old Amber Tuckrow traveled with a friend and her 14-month-old son from Fort McMurray, Alberta to Nisku, which is just outside of Edmonton, Alberta. The plan was to stay in a motel outside of the city to save some money and then go into Edmonton the following day. But Tuckrow was too excited, so she decided to hitchhike into Edmonton that night. When she hadn't returned by the next morning, her friend contacted her mother, and her mother called the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, also known as the RCMP. The RCMP didn't take the disappearance seriously, and they removed Tuckrow from the missing persons list after a month, even though she hadn't been found. 2 years after she went missing, there was still no trace of Amber Tuckrow. That is when the RCMP released part of a phone call that was made by Tuckrow to her brother, who was incarcerated at the time, and the prison recorded all phone calls. What you're about to hear now is Amber Tuckrow's last phone call.
Where are we by?
We're just heading south of Beaumont, or north of Beaumont.
We're heading north of Beaumont. Yo, where are we going? No, this is a... Are you fucking kidding me? You better not take me anywhere I don't want to go. I want to go into the city. Jeez. Yo, we're not going in the city, are we?
We're going.
No, we're not. Then where the these roads going to?
50th Street.
50th Street. Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Yo, where are we going?
50th Street.
50th Street?
50th Street.
East, right? Over town.
Problem.
4 days after the call was made public, horseback riders happened upon a human skull. Dental records showed that the skull belonged to Amber Tuckero. In the call, the driver says that he is driving Tuckero north towards Edmonton, but he actually drove her southeast to the rural area of Leduc County. The call where the clip was taken from was a 17-minute long phone call, and Tuckero's body was found about 17 minutes away from the motel. The RCMP, who admitted they mishandled the case, are hoping that someone will recognize the voice and reach out to them. If someone does recognize the voice and contacts the RCMP, it may help solve 3 other unsolved murders as well. Since 2003, the bodies of 3 other women, who are all Aboriginal women, have been found dumped in the same area as Tuckero. 30-year-old Katie Ballantyne disappeared from Edmonton on April 28, 2003, and her remains were found months later in Leduc County. Next, on May 9, 2004, 27-year-old Corey Ottenbrett was last seen by her family before she left to go work as a prostitute on the streets of Edmonton. 6 days later, 33-year-old Dolores Brower went missing while hitchhiking in Edmonton. Both of their bodies were found on a rural property in Leduc County in July 2015. The bodies of all 4 women were dumped within 5 miles of each other. The RCMP are looking at the possibility that all 4 women were killed by one individual, and he may have claimed more victims that have yet to be found. Number 1. Gregory Villemay. On the afternoon of October 16, 1984, 4-year-old Gregory Villemay was playing outside of his home in the small town of Le Peigne-sur-Vallon, France. At around 5 p.m., his uncle received a disturbing phone call from an anonymous man. The caller said that he kidnapped Gregory and drowned him in the Vallon River. After talking to the man, he called Gregory's parents, and they contacted the gendarmes, who were soldiers that worked as police in the area. Sadly, his body was found at 9 p.m. in the river, about 4 miles from his home. His hands and ankles were tied up, and he had drowned. A day after the murder, Gregory's parents, Christine and Jean-Marie, received a disturbing letter. It reads, "I hope you die of grief, boss. Your money can't give you back your son. Here is my revenge, you stupid bastard." The postmark on the letter indicated that it was sent the day of the murder from the post office in the town. When they were interviewed by the gendarme, Gregory's parents immediately blamed the murder on a mysterious man whom the family and the media called the Crow. The Crow started harassing the family in 1979 by phoning Jean-Marie's father, Albert. When Albert got his phone tapped to find out who was making the calls, the Crow stopped phoning, and instead, he started mailing letters. In the letters, which were long and rambling, the Crow advised Albert to disown Jean-Marie. Then, in 1981, the Crow started terrorizing Jean-Marie, Christine, and Gregory. Between 1981 and Gregory's murder in 1984, they received over 700 phone calls from the Crow. The Crow had a hoarse voice, and he would tell the family intimate details about themselves, like he knew when they were home and where they would go out to eat. He threatened all the family members, and he had a particular hatred for Gregory, whom he called the Little Boss. Christine and Jean-Marie told the authorities about the threatening phone calls, and they were told to record them. They recorded his voice several times, but unfortunately, he has never been identified. There were several suspects in the murder of Gregory, and 2 people were even arrested. The first person to be arrested in connection with the murder was a man named Bernard LaRoche, who was a cousin of Jean-Marie. LaRoche was supposedly around the river at the time of the murder, and a handwriting expert said that his handwriting was similar to the writing in the letter. LaRoche was arrested on November 5, 1984, but he was released on February 4, 1985, and he was cleared of all charges. This upset Gregory's father, Jean-Marie, and when he was asked about it by the press, he vowed to kill his cousin. Sure enough, 6 weeks later, on March 29, 1985, Jean-Marie shot LaRoche dead with a rifle in front of LaRoche's wife and his 4-year-old son. Jean-Marie ultimately was given 5 years in prison, with 1 year suspended. After LaRoche's murder, the government took the case away from the gendarme and gave it to the National Police. When the National Police took over the case, their prime suspect was Gregory's mother, Christine, and she was arrested in July 1985. In the family home, they found ropes that were similar to the ones that were used to bound Gregory, but they weren't a match. Also, witnesses say that they saw her in the post office on the day of the murder, meaning that she could have been the person who sent the letter. Handwriting experts also thought that the handwriting in the letters from the crow were similar to Christine's handwriting. But there were a few problems with the evidence. First off, the witnesses who said that they saw her at the post office contradicted each other. Secondly, Christine was home to get Gregory off the school bus, so she would not have had enough time to kill her son, dump his body, and make it to the post office. Due to all these holes in the case, all charges against her were dropped in February 1993. That was the last arrest in the case, and it has sat cold ever since. Starting in the 2000s, the police tried to pull DNA from the evidence, including the letter. Tests showed that there was male DNA in the letter, but under the stamp and under the envelope seal there was a woman's DNA. Neither DNA matched the parents, and unfortunately, no match for the DNA has ever been found. Today, the murder of 4-year-old Gregory Villemé, or L'Affaire Gregory, is considered one of France's most haunting unsolved murders. Thanks for watching this week's video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. We post a new video every Sunday. And of course, thank you to everyone who already does subscribe. If you want to check out another mystery video, please click on one of